probably share some ideas and tips along the way. So at any time y'all want to jump in and interrupt me, feel free to do so. And I guess I need to introduce myself first. I'm Derrick Bruton. I'm a 4-H specialist in Dallas, and so I cover District 4. I've been in Extension since 2000. Started out as a county agent in Smith County, which is in Tyler, and from there just moved around a little bit, and now I'm kind of settled in McKinney up in that area. So enjoy what I do. I enjoy working with kids. That's a part of my job that I probably miss most as a specialist, is seeing more little kids and watching them grow and develop. So from a county agent point of view, from a parent point of view, from a volunteer, club manager, project leader point of view, that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's the place to be in my book. And so that's why I'm also a volunteer for my kids club. I serve as their sport fishing project leader, so that's kind of fun for me. So I get back to seeing some of the little kids learning and whatnot. So real quickly, we'll go over some things. This is how Lisa got started, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Just kind of tells you her background. But she's basically done a lot of coaching and things of all different levels, ages, and so on and so forth. And I don't know, have any of y'all seen this video? If you have, then I won't share it. But this is excellent. I saw this when it first came out. This is Jennifer Nettles from Sugar Land. And she's in front of the, I believe, either the house or probably the house there in Georgia, describing what 4-H did for her. And if you don't know her background, she actually started off, she talks about it in the video, but Georgia has a program called Clovers and Company, and it's kind of a talent show, traveling talent group that 4-H has there in Georgia. And they go all over the state, but then they also go all over the country too, performing, doing musicals and those kind of things primarily. And so Jennifer was actually, that's where she got her start, was in 4-H. And so she's talking about her experience there and what 4-H did to enable her to be the performer that she is. So we'll, real quickly, let me make sure I've got my audio plugged in here so y'all can hear it. Make these cords stretch.
If you don't mind indulging me for just a few minutes, I would love to tell you my 4-H story. I know you guys are very supportive, and many of you have been 4-Hers and are familiar with the program. But I've been a 4-Her since I was in the 5th grade at Satilla Elementary School in Douglas, Georgia, Coffee County. And when the county agent came there that day, we learned the 4-H pledge. And it is, I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my help to better living for my club, my community, my country, and my world. And those are big words for a 5th grader. They're big words for a grown-up as well. But those words changed my life and shaped my life as not only a person, but also a performer. When I was in the 5th grade, I auditioned for and was selected to be a part of a performing arts group called Clovers and Company, which is through the Georgia 4-H program. It's about 35 students from 5th grade to 12th grade, and I was a member of it from the 5th grade until I graduated high school. And during that time, we traveled around, we sang show tunes, we danced, we had a band that was all students as well, and they played the music for us, and we toured for conventions and conferences for 4-H, for the Sunbelt Expo in Moultrie, Georgia, anything and everything we traveled throughout. I also had the opportunity with them to travel through Kentucky and Florida. I'd never been anywhere outside of Douglas with the exception of maybe, Fernandina Beach in Florida, which is, for vacation. But otherwise, I had never been anywhere. When I was in the 7th grade with Clovers and Company, I was able to go to Chicago, Illinois. It was my first time ever on an airplane. And 4-H allowed that to happen, to give me that kind of experience to learn about things outside of my hometown. And I went there and we performed for National Confrence, which is basically a group of teenagers, 4-Hers who were there, and I was backstage and learned how to be calm and learned how to be confident and do wardrobe changes and walk out there in front of all my peers and hopefully gave a good performance, though I don't remember, it was so long ago, but we'll say it was good. But what it did do is that the whole 4-H experience with Clover and Company did help me as a performer. So last year, which you saw here on the video at the top, when I stepped out on stage at the inaugural concert on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in front of 800,000 people, which is the most people I've ever performed in front of, and the President of the United States and the First Lady and the Vice President, his wife and family, that was a piece of cake because I had had all of this experience to pull from and draw from, and nothing is scarier than being a teenager anyway, walking out in front of other teenagers. So that was what I call perspective and what I like to think of as clearer thinking here that it says in that case for my country. Then when I was in the 12th grade, I went to something called National Confrence, which is in Washington, D.C., my second time on an airplane. And there were delegates there from all over the United States, 4-Hers, including Puerto Rico. And I met the Puerto Rican delegation, and I fell in love with them. And that summer, instead of going on my senior cruise, I decided I wanted to go to Puerto Rico and meet these people and their family. So I did. And I fell in love with the language, and consequently, when I went to Agnes Scott College here in Atlanta, Georgia, I studied anthropology and Spanish, which I have laughed and said they're really good tools for a country singer. But I went on after that, for example, to study that culture, and now I have a humanitarian organization in Guatemala that takes kids and takes doctors down there, and they give them surgeries for children that otherwise would not be able to live or afford these surgeries. So now I can make a direct line from 4-H at that national conference to this organization, and there's a kid somewhere in Guatemala today who doesn't have a cleft palate or whose kidneys actually function because of that experience that I had. You never know what happens in the life of a child. Then when I was in college, speaking of what happens in the life of a child, I was a camp counselor for 3 summers at Rock Eagle 4-H Center. Now the 4-H, yes, in Eatonton, Georgia. The 4-H camping program, we have 5 camping facilities, and we camp about 10,000 kids per summer. A lot of times for these kids, it's their only time ever having been outside their hometown as well. And they get to be kids at a time when we all grow up so quickly. They get to learn things like swimming and volleyball and go on the nature trail and dance and crafts and all of that. And for me, as a young person, being able to see the excitement in a child's eyes when he learns how to swim for the first time, or to see a little girl look up at you when you're painting her fingernails outside the dining hall and know that she can't even believe it because it might be the only time she's been touched out of kindness. That makes a difference in children's lives. And I think that that's greater service for my community. So I'm here today on behalf of 4-H, and obviously you guys have remembered 4-H, and I appreciate that, and to ask you to continue to remember that. Remember the story of how it changes it.
Cut off on this, but I think not only does that serve as a great example for what a contest like Share the Fun can do for our kids, but just 4-H in general. I thought whenever that first came out, I mean, it was something that really validated what I did and what you all do as leaders. I think that you never know that one particular instance that'll touch a kid's life that'll change it forever, and you see the ripple effect that it's had on other people that she's been able to touch. So I think that's pretty moving stuff, pretty cool. But it all started off with basically a talent event. It got her motivated, and look where she's at now. Come on. Okay, this was some information taken from a survey asking, what's the one thing that they enjoyed most about participating in Share the Fun. They enjoy meeting new friends. Obviously, a big carrot for our senior members is competing on the stage there at Roundup. It's kind of a momentous thing. I know growing up, I was in Share the Fun. We always did a skit every year with our club. And I think we finally ended up making it to state one year. And so that was a cool experience for me because, I thought, we finally met or made it to our goal. We made it on stage at College Station. And so that's a big place to be whenever you're a kid. Sometimes we might take something like that for granted, but to a kid, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. It lets kids meet other people, obviously, and it just lets them unwind, be crazy, be goofy. Gives them a reason to act silly rather than, as a parent, we're always telling them to behave, straighten up. This lets them let their hair out and go crazy for a little bit. And that's okay, and that's good, and that shows their creativity and their energy, and it's fun and engaging to see. It's fun to watch kids when they're excited and they're having fun. To me, that's my recharge too. Is whenever I go to state roundup every year, I always go and try to make a point to watch Share the Fun events, because that's really what pumps me up again for the next year and gets me going. Most important skills gained. This is from the same survey. Not being afraid to speak in front of crowds. We all know, we've heard, that's the number one fear of all people, not just kids, but adults too. Is speaking in front of an audience. And so, every time we can get them up in front of an audience, whether it's at a club meeting or, maybe you take them to a senior citizen center or something like that, let them perform in front of them, you're helping them build that confidence and self-esteem that helps them get over that fear. Obviously, public speaking goes along with that. Projecting their voice. This is the number one critique that I always put on Share the Fun whenever I'm judging. Is, they're not projecting enough. They're not getting their voice to the back of the room. A lot of times our kids have a hesitancy of talking loud because they feel like they're overpowering the audience and they're being rude, because we've always told them, hush, be quiet, don't talk out loud, don't raise your voice in here. But in Share the Fun events, it's just the opposite. You've got to go over the top with your performance. You've got to go over the top with your voice. And so you've got to learn to project. And that's not something that's easy for kids. It's not something that's comfortable for kids. So, to me, as a judge or as a coach, I would encourage you as a judge to sit at the back of the room, or as a coach to sit at the back of the room, and then even have the kids switch off. Have part of the performance going on up front, and have some of them sit at the back, so they can critique each other and they go, oh, well, that's what they're talking about. I can barely hear them up there. So they can get a perspective too of how loud you really have to be in order to be heard. Obviously, they can get over some of the nerves as well. If you could encourage another 4-H member to do Share the Fun, what would you tell them? The number one response there is it's fun. I think we all take that for granted, but that's what kids want to do whenever they're coming to our club meetings, is they want to have fun. And a lot of times that's what we miss. Whenever we're programming and we're thinking of ideas of things for kids to do in their club meetings and their project meetings, is we forget the fun aspect. We want them to learn, yeah. And so we're always worried about, teaching them this and teaching them that, but let them have fun along the way. And then sneak into learning, somewhere in between. Helps you give speeches at school. I'll say that from a personal perspective. 4-H helped me whenever I was in college and I had a college speech class. College speech was a piece of cake. They asked me, the professor would always ask, who wants to go first? I do, I'm ready. I've got my whole 4-H speech ready, and here I go. So it, and he was glad to see that. In fact, he got extra points, if you were one of the first ones to get up and give a speech. So, so 4-H gave me that confidence to jump up there and not be shy. It's tons of fun with your friends. It doesn't take much time. There's not just one thing to do: acting, speaking, singing, and so on. Some other things participating in Share the Fun encourage you to do more with 4-H or school, and if so, what? Become more confident, obviously, is a common theme, which led them to be president. So it gives them that courage to jump up, and it's okay to put yourself out there in front of your peers, and because a lot of times they'll respond to that. I volunteered to be a higher officer positions in the club, gave me confidence. I used to turn back, turn my back to even my friends to sing, and now I can do it in front of on a stage for community events. So it's pretty cool. This is Lisa's daughter, Taylor, and so you can kind of see where Lisa got some of her or maybe where Taylor got some of her talent from. Maybe it's from her mother, but I don't know why they audio so much. Here we go.